Have you ever looked at your own shadow and felt it wasn't really yours? Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the shadow that's been with you your entire life has chosen someone else, and not just anyone, but a billionaire whose world you've only seen in magazines. Today, we're about to follow Amara's story, where ambition, love, and a shadow that seems to have its own mind collide in ways she could never have imagined. Stay with me, because every second brings a new secret, a shocking twist, and a truth that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about reality. She had always taken her shadow for granted, until the day it chose someone else. Amara Nwafor woke to the gentle hum of Lagos coming alive outside her floor-to-ceiling windows. Her apartment in Victoria Island was a testament to success, a sleek high-rise filled with the soft gleam of polished marble, state-of-the-art gadgets that responded to her slightest touch, and curated pieces of modern art that reflected her precise taste. Yet, despite the luxury, a quiet loneliness clung to the corners of the space, the kind that whispered in moments of silence that something was missing. At 29, Amara had everything a young tech entrepreneur could want: wealth, influence, a growing startup poised to become a national sensation, but she had never felt entirely complete. From childhood, her shadow had been a constant companion. Even as a little girl in Enugu, she had felt its presence, stretching beside her in sunlight and following her faithfully through every misadventure. Her shadow was more than a reflection. It was a silent witness, a protective, invisible presence that had given her a strange comfort throughout her life. She never questioned it. She took it for granted. That is, until today. On this morning, Amara laced up her running shoes and headed to Lekki Beach, the cool sand soft beneath her feet as the sun began to rise over the Atlantic. Jogging along the water's edge, she felt the familiar rhythm of her body mirrored by the familiar dark shape stretching behind her. But something was off. She slowed down, frowning. Her shadow. It didn't move with her. Her arms swung, but it stayed rigid. Her legs sprinted, but it remained planted. A sudden shiver ran down her spine. She stopped entirely, squinting at the sand as the sunlight struck at just the right angle, or so she thought. "It's just the angle," she whispered to herself. She waved her arms, jumped, spun, but nothing. Panic bubbled in her chest. She stepped closer to a nearby reflective surface, a luxury glass storefront, but the reflection mimicked her movements perfectly. The shadow on the sand remained still. Fear and disbelief collided in her mind. "Am I seeing things?" she muttered. Her pulse quickened. She backed away, scanning the beach. Was it a trick of the morning light? Perhaps fatigue? Yet her instincts screamed otherwise. Her shadow, her constant companion, had made a choice, and that choice was not to follow her. Returning to her apartment, Amara attempted every angle, every reflective surface, testing the morning sun through her smart blinds. Nothing responded. Every movement she made, every gesture, she was alone. A creeping paranoia set in. She felt as if someone or something was observing her, not just the ordinary passers-by of the city streets, but something closer, sharper, inexplicably intelligent. Her mind raced through memories, her solitude magnified by the eerie certainty that this was no coincidence. It was then that Tolu, her mentor and longtime friend, called. His voice was calm yet insistent. "Amara, sometimes instincts are louder than logic. Don't ignore them." She told him what happened, careful not to sound entirely unhinged. He listened, the faintest edge of concern in his tone. "Trust what your senses tell you," he said. "But don't panic. Whatever it is, you'll understand it in time." As she hung up, a childhood memory surfaced, a vivid flash of her 7-year-old self running through her father's compound in Enugu, chased by the teasing winds of the rainy season, her shadow stretching long and protective, always a step behind her, mirroring, guiding. That shadow had been a silent sentinel, a guardian she had subconsciously relied upon through every important, dangerous, or uncertain moment in her life. And now, it had left her. Amara stepped outside to collect her thoughts, wandering toward the bustling street below her apartment. Her gaze fell on a figure across the street, standing in the glow of the morning sun. She froze. There, walking with a confidence that made her breath catch, was a man dressed in a crisp designer suit, exuding wealth in every movement, the kind of presence she had only glimpsed in glossy business magazines or on screens announcing new tech moguls. And her shadow. It was walking beside him, moving perfectly in sync with his stride, as if it had always belonged there. Amara's heart pounded. She blinked, hoping it was a trick of the light or her tired eyes, but no. The realization hit her with terrifying clarity. The shadow that had followed her every step since childhood had chosen someone else. And then, slowly, deliberately, her mind connected the impossible dots. The face she had only admired from afar, the billionaire Chike Anozie, a man whose reputation for brilliance and ruthlessness had dominated the Lagos tech scene, was the one her shadow now followed. A chill ran down her spine as she whispered to herself, "Chike Anozie?" Her pulse thundered in her ears. Questions surged, tangled with fear and fascination. How? Why? And most importantly, was it coincidence or destiny? Her shadow had betrayed her, and in that moment, Amara realized her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. Across the street, Chike Anozie turned ever so slightly, as if sensing her gaze, and smiled knowingly, a smile that promised both danger and desire. Her shadow belonged to someone else, and it was walking beside Chike Anozie. Amara's pulse raced as she lingered across the street, watching the improbable scene unfold. There he was, Chike Anozie. At 36, he was the embodiment of modern Nigerian success, tall, impeccably dressed, every movement radiating precision and control. He moved with a calm confidence that commanded attention even from strangers on busy Lagos streets. His eyes, dark and unreadable, held a strange intensity, as if he could see through the layers people hid behind. Every detail, from the subtle curve of his smile to the effortless elegance of his stride, marked him as a man used to having the world respond to his whims, and beside him, walking in perfect synchrony, was her shadow. Amara's stomach twisted between fear and fascination. It wasn't just that the shadow had abandoned her, it had aligned itself with him. She could see how it mirrored the slight lift of his hand, the slow tilt of his head. It was as if her shadow had found its true master. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, unnatural, but an undeniable pull urged her to step closer, to study him, to understand why this had happened. Curiosity overcame hesitation. She watched as he entered a glass-walled tower a few streets away, a building she had only seen in glossy magazines, the headquarters of Chike Anozie's empire. The building itself was a statement of power and modernity. Sleek steel and glass reflecting the Lagos skyline, balconies lined with greenery, and a private helipad on the roof. From that vantage point, she glimpsed his private jet parked discreetly nearby, waiting to whisk him off to global meetings or weekend retreats she could only imagine. And yet, despite the luxury, there was a subtle aura of isolation. Cheek's world was glamorous, yes, but tightly controlled, solitary, a kingdom with invisible walls that few were allowed to breach. As she lingered, Amara's mind whirled. Could it be coincidence? A trick of the light? Perhaps some bizarre alignment of shadows and angles? But deep down, she knew this was something more. Her shadow had always been a reflection of her inner self, her essence, and now it was following someone else. Something about Cheek's presence, his energy, though she didn't yet know how to define it, had drawn it away. She remembered Tolu's words from earlier that morning. Sometimes instincts are louder than logic. Her instincts screamed now, louder than ever. It was more than coincidence. Perhaps this was destiny, or a connection she had never imagined. And yet, an irrational thought crept in. Could it be supernatural? It made no sense, and yet the impossible was unfolding before her very eyes. Her reverie broke as Chike paused at the entrance of the tower, looking out over the street. For a brief moment, his eyes met hers. She froze, unsure if he had truly seen her or if it was her imagination. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded, a subtle acknowledgement that sent a shiver down her spine. That single gesture carried layers of meaning, recognition, curiosity, even something more intimate, though she couldn't yet name it. The realization hit her like lightning. He was aware of her presence. He knew. Amara's chest tightened as she wrestled with the swirl of emotions, fear, intrigue, attraction, and a mounting sense of destiny. Her shadow, which had always been silent, now seemed to carry its own message, warning, invitation, or perhaps both. She felt a strange connection to the figure before her, as if the universe itself had orchestrated this moment. She tried to imagine speaking to him, but the words caught in her throat. The city's hum seemed to fade, leaving only the synchronized movement of her shadow and Chike, a rhythm that seemed both alien and hypnotic. Every instinct she had, every lesson in caution and prudence, told her to step back. And yet, every fiber of her being urged her to step forward, to see what lay beyond this impossible convergence. A subtle breeze moved through the street, and with it, her shadow shifted slightly, leaning toward him as if pulled by an invisible thread. Amara felt her heartbeat accelerate. Her mind screamed, "This is impossible." But it's happening. Then, a voice, deep, measured, and unmistakably his, broke the spell. Amara Nwafor. Time seemed to slow. Her own name, spoken aloud by the man whose world had always seemed untouchable, sent a shock through her system. He had not only seen her, he had spoken to her, directly, knowingly, as if he had always been waiting for this moment. Her breath caught, and the city noises seemed to fade into a dull murmur. She felt the weight of 1,000 questions pressing down, yet knew that whatever path lay ahead, nothing would ever be the same. Her shadow, no longer her own, the billionaire before her fully aware of her presence, Amara realized this was just the beginning. The game had started, and she had no idea what the rules were. A single invitation brought her closer to Chike than she ever imagined. Amara stared at the sleek envelope lying on her kitchen counter, her name embossed in gold. The logo of Chike Anozie's conglomerate shimmered subtly under the soft glow of her apartment lights. It was an invitation to a tech summit hosted at one of Lagos's most exclusive rooftop venues overlooking Victoria Island. Her fingers trembled slightly as she read the words aloud. Your presence is requested to discuss innovation, partnership, and vision. There was no mention of why she had been chosen, just the irresistible pull of opportunity. Despite the allure, a swirl of doubt settled in her chest. She thought of her shadow, now inexplicably loyal to Chike, wandering beside him in the morning sun. Was this invitation fate, or a trap she couldn't yet comprehend? She shook her head, attempting to ground herself in logic. Her career was on the cusp of a breakthrough. Perhaps attending was simply good business. The night of the summit arrived, and Amara stepped out onto the Victoria Island rooftop, greeted by a panorama of glittering city lights and yachts swaying gently in the harbor. Soft lighting bathed the scene in gold and silver, highlighting the elegance of Lagos's elite. Conversations hummed like gentle music, punctuated by laughter and the occasional clink of glasses. The air was rich with ambition, fragrance, and quiet tension, the kind of charged atmosphere where deals were made as easily as first impressions. And then she saw him, Chike Anozie. He had moved through the crowd with the grace of someone accustomed to attention, yet there was a subtle air of mystery about him. His dark eyes scanned the room, briefly catching hers. The world seemed to narrow to the space between them, and Amara felt the familiar, impossible tug of her shadow, stretching, leaning subtly toward him as if acknowledging a bond she did not yet understand. A shiver ran down her spine, blending awe with an unnameable fear. Around them, secondary players moved with purpose. Investors with sharp suits and sharper minds whispered deals across polished marble tables. Ambitious young entrepreneurs circled like hawks, measuring opportunities and alliances. Socialites mingled effortlessly, their laughter light but calculated, masking ambitions that could rival the highest corporate ladder. Amara felt both dwarfed and drawn into this world, her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of potential and peril. As Chike approached, the first real proximity between them sent a jolt through her. He was closer now than the morning sun had ever allowed, and the energy in the air thickened. He extended a hand, not just in greeting, but with a quiet command that made her feel simultaneously safe and exposed. The touch was brief but electric. Every instinct in Amara's body flared, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and the growing pull of something she didn't yet understand. Their conversation began with business pleasantries, carefully measured words, and subtle assessments. Yet beneath the surface, a current of flirtation shimmered, small smiles that lingered too long, veiled compliments, and glances that dared to probe beyond professionalism. The tension was palpable, a delicate dance of intrigue and attraction. Amara found herself both resisting and leaning in, captivated by his presence, yet wary of its intensity. Her mind raced as she observed the shadow again, bending slightly, almost alive, acknowledging him in a way that went beyond logic. Could it sense his intentions, or was it a reflection of her own unspoken fascination? She struggled to maintain composure, balancing her desire to impress with the fear of exposing herself, emotionally, professionally, and vulnerably. Amara took in the cultural richness around her, the subtle mix of Lagos, nightlife elegance with traditional Nigerian touches, the soft hum of Afrobeat music mingling with live jazz, fashion statements that blended local design with international trends, and conversations that effortlessly moved between innovation, tradition, and aspiration. She realized she was stepping not just into a business event, but into a microcosm of modern Nigerian society, where influence, culture, and ambition intersected seamlessly. The evening continued with speeches, networking, and hushed deals exchanged over champagne. Every step, every interaction, every glance seemed choreographed by forces beyond her comprehension. Yet, as the summit drew to a close, Amara felt a dissonant pull. She glanced down at the rooftop terrace and saw something that made her stomach twist. Her shadow had detached from her once again, gliding silently across the space, moving toward Chike as if drawn by some invisible tether. Her breath caught. The shadow, her constant companion, her silent witness, was walking toward him alone, fully aware, fully autonomous. Questions collided in her mind. Why? How? Was it seeking him, warning her, or merely obeying a force she could not perceive? The world around her blurred into background noise. For the first time, Amara felt both dangerously small and overwhelmingly exposed, as if standing at the precipice of a reality that would redefine everything she thought she knew. She turned back, intending to leave, yet she couldn't shake the image of her shadow moving in perfect synchrony with Chike Anozie, an enigma she would have to confront sooner or later. Behind Chike's wealth lay a world she never imagined, beautiful, dangerous, and mysterious. Amara approached the towering mansion of Chike Anozie, her heart thrumming in a rhythm that matched the pulse of Lagos itself. The structure was a masterpiece of modern design. Walls of seamless glass reflecting the city skyline, rooftop gardens where exotic plants swayed gently in the wind, and terraces that looked out over the Atlantic with breathtaking precision. Every corner of the mansion whispered luxury, but beneath the opulence lay a sense of carefully curated isolation. It was not merely a home. It was a fortress of intellect, power, and secrets. Inside, the foyer opened into an expansive gallery of rare art pieces and sculptures, each carefully positioned to create a narrative only Chike himself could fully understand. Advanced AI systems monitored lighting, climate, and security with invisible precision, creating an environment that was both welcoming and intimidating. Amara could feel the invisible boundaries of control. Everything was perfect, and yet every detail seemed designed to test her, to see if she belonged. Though Amara had come under a professional pretext to discuss potential collaboration for her digital startup, she found herself drawn into Chike's personal world. There was a tension in the air that went beyond business, the careful curation of art, the subtle orchestration of space, the way he moved with grace yet measured intent. Even the shadows inside the mansion seemed to respond differently in his presence, stretching and bending with a life that felt almost sentient. As they moved through the spaces, Chike shared fragments of his story. A man molded by early loss, cutthroat ambition, and a constant sense of being alone even in crowds. His charisma was effortless, yet Amara sensed the loneliness lurking beneath, a vulnerability hidden behind polished smiles and sharp intelligence. She felt a mixture of admiration and fear, her pulse quickening not just from the luxury surrounding her, but from the intensity radiating from him. Her shadow, too, behaved unusually. Detached slightly from her movements, it seemed to explore the mansion independently, drifting along corridors and peering into rooms before returning. Amara's eyes followed it nervously, a reminder that the phenomenon was not merely about light and angles. It was a message, a sign, a mystery she could not yet decode. Chike observed her reactions closely, and with subtle probing, he teased her intellect and ambition. His questions were layered, challenging her to think beyond standard answers, to reveal not just what she did, but who she was, what she desired, and what drove her to succeed. Amara found herself responding in ways she hadn't anticipated, her defenses softening under the weight of fascination, challenge, and undeniable chemistry. In the private library, the first sparks of a romantic connection flickered in the quiet. A shared laugh over a clever analogy, a momentary brush of hands reaching for the same book, the soft hum of the city below serving as a background score to a tension that neither could yet name. Every glance, every word carried a dual meaning, a delicate interplay of attraction and professional caution. Around them, Chike's inner circle moved discreetly. Loyal friends, trusted advisors, and subtle rivals, all aware of Amara's presence, yet none daring to intrude directly. Their watchful eyes were another reminder of the high-stakes world she had stepped into, one where trust was rare, ambition was currency, and appearances could be deceiving. The evening unfolded with touches of Lagos culture woven seamlessly into the billionaire lifestyle. A private gala with local musicians performing soft Afrobeat, tables laden with traditional dishes presented with modern elegance, and subtle nods to heritage in the decor. Amara felt the contrast between tradition and modernity, sensing how Chike's world balanced both, just as he balanced control and vulnerability. And then, as the night deepened, a discovery left Amara breathless. In a private study, tucked behind an ornate door she hadn't noticed before, she found a collection of photographs, her own. Images from various public events, conferences, and even casual city appearances she had never shared beyond social media. Someone had been observing her meticulously, carefully, over time. Her heart raced. Was this merely professional interest, or was it personal? A chill ran down her spine at the thought that the mysterious magnetic billionaire, whose shadow now held her own, might know more about her than she had ever imagined. The shadow, which had been hovering with curious autonomy, seemed to pause at the doorway, almost acknowledging the connection between Amara and the images. The air felt charged, heavy with the weight of secrets, and Amara realized that Chike's world was far more intricate and far more intimate than she had ever anticipated. As she turned to leave the study, she noticed Chike standing silently behind her, eyes dark with unreadable emotion. A slow, knowing smile curved his lips, and Amara understood this was not just business. Something far more profound and dangerous was beginning. Some secrets are stitched into our souls, and shadows have a way of revealing them. Amara sat alone in her apartment later that evening, the photographs she had discovered still spread across her coffee table. Each image, meticulously captured, told a story she had never intended to share beyond fleeting public appearances. Her first instinct was disbelief, then anger, then a creeping sense of vulnerability she couldn't quite articulate. Chike Anozie, the man whose shadow now bore her own, had been observing her, studying her career, her habits, her ambitions, from afar. The realization unsettled her more than it should have. Her shadow, once a silent reflection of herself, seemed now like a messenger of destiny, tugging her attention toward truths she hadn't been ready to confront. Amara's thoughts spun with a mixture of fear and fascination. Was the shadow a metaphor for ambition itself, for the parts of her life she had kept hidden even from herself? Or had it become something alive, independent, guiding her toward something she couldn't yet understand? A soft chime announced a message on her tablet. It was from Chike himself, an invitation to meet privately to discuss her future, the shadows, and his own fascination with them. Hesitation gripped her. Every instinct screamed caution, and yet curiosity outweighed fear. She accepted. When she arrived at Chike's office, the air felt charged with the intensity she had come to recognize. He gestured for her to sit, his expression calm but unreadable. "I imagine you have many questions," he said, his voice steady, yet carrying an unspoken depth. You've noticed the shadow, its choices, its movements. Amara's heartbeat quickened. Why me? Why now? She asked, struggling to maintain composure. Chike leaned back, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. I study people's energy and intent, he explained. Shadows, in a way, are extensions of ourselves, not just reflections, but signatures of ambition and desire. Sometimes they stray toward those whose paths align with their own potential, or perhaps the potential they sense in others. The words hung in the air, strange and compelling. Amara felt a shiver run down her spine. It was both terrifying and intoxicating to think that her own presence, her ambitions, and her drive were visible to someone else in a way she had never imagined. Her mind flickered back to her childhood in Enugu, to a different kind of observation, the protective watch of her own family, the shadow that had always followed her. Memories surged. Her estranged father, distant and cold, always critical of her smallest efforts, her mother, protective and gentle, a sanctuary of encouragement, her siblings, whose envy had fueled rivalries that shaped her early ambition. Even in those formative years, shadows had been present, not only as sunlight on walls, but as the imprint of influence, protection, and subtle control. She realized now that her shadow had been carrying more than a reflection. It carried history, family, ambition, and identity. The moment grew intimate as she and Chike discussed visions for her startup. His presence was magnetic, subtle gestures, lingering glances, and soft smiles threading their conversation with unspoken tension. Amara found herself laughing more freely than she had in months, yet also trembling slightly under the weight of curiosity and fear. The connection was immediate, unspoken, and dangerous in a way that made her pulse quicken. Foreshadowing of collaboration emerged naturally. Your ambitions, Chike said, align with something I've been cultivating. I believe there's a path where our visions intersect, personally and professionally. Amara's mind reeled. The idea of intertwining her life, her career, and perhaps even her heart with someone as powerful and enigmatic as Chike was thrilling and terrifying. Back in Lagos, Tolu's voice echoed in her memory. Trust your instincts, Amara, but be careful. Not all opportunities are what they seem. His cautionary tone reminded her that beneath Chike's charm lay a world of calculated influence, where loyalty was rare and every move had consequences. The shadow, the photographs, the magnetic pull, everything hinted at something orchestrated, yet Amara couldn't determine if it was benevolent or manipulative. As night fell, she wandered through the city streets, reflecting on the cultural tapestry around her, the vibrant hustle of Balogun Market, rooftop dining overlooking the Lagos skyline, and the subtle sophistication of high-powered networking events she had attended only recently. Each scene mirrored her own journey, blending ambition, desire, and the unpredictable interplay of power and influence. Finally, in a moment of quiet reflection, she felt the weight of revelation settle on her. The photographs, the shadow, Chike's intense awareness, all pointed to a truth she had not yet fully grasped. And then, in the soft voice of someone both commanding and intimate, Chike revealed the truth that sent shockwaves through her mind. Amara, our meeting today was no accident. I engineered our encounter, deliberately, strategically, to ensure we met in person. Amara froze. Every thought, every instinct, screamed disbelief and intrigue at once. He had orchestrated it all, her shadow, her career trajectory, their eventual meeting. The realization made her feel simultaneously exposed and chosen, as if fate itself were testing her limits of curiosity, courage, and desire. She blinked, the city lights reflecting in her eyes, and whispered under her breath, "You've been watching me. All this time?" Chike's smile deepened, hinting that secrets far larger than she could imagine were waiting to be revealed. When ambition meets desire, the line between love and strategy blurs. Amara found herself stepping onto Chike Anozie's private jet, the polished cabin lights reflecting off sleek leather seats. The city of Lagos receded beneath them, a sea of twinkling lights blending with the dark Atlantic horizon. She gripped the armrest lightly, her mind buzzing with anticipation and unease. This was her first experience inside the private world of a billionaire. Her career ambitions had brought her this far, but her emotions, raw and untested, were threatening to overtake her logic. Chike sat opposite her, effortlessly confident, yet with an intensity that seemed to magnify every thought she had. He glanced at her from beneath his brow, his expression calm yet unreadable, like a chess master observing a player about to make a critical move. Their conversation began with business, strategies for the International Tech Expo, market trends, and innovative partnerships. But underneath it, a quiet current of fascination and desire flowed between them. Every word, every glance carried double meaning, teasing and testing the boundaries of propriety. As they touched down in the glittering city hosting the expo, rivalries began to emerge. Another woman, poised and ambitious, approached with subtle calculation in her eyes. She had clearly noticed Amara, her expression tinged with both intrigue and silent challenge. Amara felt a pang of discomfort, but also a fierce resolve. This world demanded competition, but she refused to let fear dictate her presence. The shadow, ever unpredictable, mirrored the tension. Sometimes it stayed near Amara, protective and comforting. At other times, it drifted slightly ahead, teasing and exploring as if drawn to Chike's energy. Its behavior reflected the complexity of her own emotions, part fear, part fascination, part excitement. She found herself watching it as intently as she did Chike, trying to decipher its messages and what they meant about her own destiny. During the day's expo sessions, Chike's admiration for her intellect became evident. He asked pointed questions about her startup's vision, testing not only her business acumen, but also her creativity and courage. Amara responded with measured confidence, yet with flashes of vulnerability, her answers revealing both her ambition and her longing for recognition beyond superficial success. Chike listened closely, offering insights and subtle praise, making her feel seen in a way she had not experienced before. Shared meals became moments of quiet intimacy amidst the bustle of corporate chaos. Sitting across from him at a small rooftop restaurant overlooking the expo grounds, they spoke about aspirations, fears, and the delicate balance between personal ambition and the pursuit of love. Electric tension threaded through each interaction, a hand brushing lightly against hers while reaching for the same plate, a soft laugh that lingered in the space between them, and unspoken glances that hinted at mutual fascination. Even as Lagos's cultural influence receded behind them, elements of their home city remained woven into their interactions. The vibrant energy of markets, the rich flavors of local cuisine adapted into gourmet meals, the rhythmic pulse of music blending contemporary and traditional influences. These touches reminded Amara of home even as she navigated the unfamiliar world of international influence and power. Foreshadowing of larger corporate intrigue threaded through every interaction. Subtle whispers from other attendees hinted at alliances, secret agendas, and hidden competitors. Secondary characters, both allies and rivals, tested loyalties, revealing layers of complexity that required careful navigation. Every conversation, every glance, seemed to carry potential consequences beyond the immediate moment, forcing Amara to balance ambition with strategy, instinct with intellect. As evening descended and the gala began, a breathtaking display of lights and luxury, something extraordinary happened. In the dim glow of crystal chandeliers, Amara glimpsed her shadow and cheeks merging briefly, dancing together on the polished floor as if acknowledging a deeper, unseen connection. The sight made her heart skip a beat, a surreal moment that bridged ambition and desire, mystery and reality. She felt a surge of emotion, recognizing that the shadows were more than mere reflections. They were symbols of alignment, destiny, and the invisible bonds between them. Amara's mind raced, emotions swirling in a potent mix of excitement, fear, and curiosity. She understood that the evening had shifted the rules of her world, intertwining personal longing with professional ambition, testing her limits of trust and courage. And in that fleeting moment, the merging shadows seemed to whisper a truth she could neither articulate nor deny. Some connections were destined, and some desires could not be contained. As the gala continued, Amara glanced toward the balcony and saw the shadows move once more, this time in perfect unity, as if silently affirming a bond that neither ambition nor fear could sever. A shiver ran through her, and she realized that nothing in her life would ever be the same. Not all intentions are visible, and some shadows hide dangerous truths. The morning air in Lagos was thick with humidity and anticipation as Amara entered her office only to find a storm waiting for her. Her laptop screen glowed with the stark reality. Confidential project plans had been leaked to a rival tech firm. The betrayal stung sharply, cutting through the pride she had built over months of tireless effort. The sense of exposure left her breathless, and for a moment the city noise outside felt distant, almost irrelevant. She had always trusted her team, but one misstep had shattered that illusion. Her shadow flickered nervously at her feet, almost as if sharing her unease, moving independently in subtle, unpredictable patterns. It lingered, then retreated, then stretched toward her, protective, alert, and enigmatic. It was as if it knew the depths of the treachery before her mind could fully process them. Chike, ever aware, entered with his signature calm confidence, though his eyes burned with controlled fury. He had already confronted several rival associates within his empire who had tried to exploit the leak. The magnitude of his influence was intimidating, yet his presence beside her was oddly reassuring. Together, they became a calculated force, navigating the murky waters of corporate sabotage while managing the unpredictable currents of emotion between them. Secondary characters added layers of tension to the already volatile atmosphere. Investors whispered in corners, some envious, some opportunistic, while trusted colleagues displayed subtle hints of jealousy that made Amara second-guess loyalty. Allies and rivals alike revealed ambitions that could either aid or undo them, forcing Amara to discern intent from pretense, instinct from manipulation. Every smile, every casual remark seemed laden with hidden meaning. Amara and Chike's bond deepened under pressure. Side by side, they strategized over emails, calls, and meetings, negotiating with competitors, calming anxious investors, and rebuilding the trust that had been fractured. Each challenge forced them to rely on intuition and subtle cues, the glance that hinted at compromise, the pause that revealed intent, the whispered comment that signaled opportunity. In navigating the chaos, Amara learned the unspoken language of power in Chike's world, and with it, her own instincts sharpened. Amid the corporate maelstrom, romantic tension simmered. A fleeting touch while passing documents, a shared laugh at a dry remark in a tense meeting, the way Chike's gaze lingered slightly longer than necessary. It was subtle, almost invisible to others, but to Amara it burned like fire. The storm around them intensified, yet in its eye, a connection deepened, fragile but undeniable. The cultural essence of Lagos continued to infuse their experiences. Rooftop parties with panoramic views of the city, the rhythmic pulse of Afrobeat blending with electronic music, high-end market strolls where tradition met modernity. All these moments reminded Amara of her roots even as she navigated a world defined by global influence. Each sensory detail, the aroma of spices, the shimmer of luxury fabrics, the hum of late-night traffic, added texture to the tension and intimacy, grounding their story in a tangible cinematic reality. And then came the moment that shifted everything. At a crucial launch event for Amara's project, the room brimming with industry leaders and media, she felt the subtle tug of her shadow. And then, suddenly, it was gone. Completely vanished. The protective, teasing, independent presence that had been her silent companion through every moment of doubt and triumph had disappeared. Her pulse quickened, instinct screamed danger. The absence left a hollow feeling in her chest, as if a part of her had been snatched away, leaving only vulnerability. Panic and curiosity warred within her. Had the shadow left voluntarily, following some invisible command? Was it warning her of unseen betrayal yet to come? Or had it been drawn away by a force she couldn't perceive? The uncertainty was suffocating, and for the first time in her career and in her strange, shadowed relationship with Chike, Amara felt powerless. Chike noticed immediately. His calm facade remained, but his eyes, sharp and calculating, betrayed concern. He moved to her side, his presence grounding her even as the tension spiked. "It's gone," he said quietly, voice low but commanding. "We'll figure this out. But be alert." The words were meant to reassure, yet they carried a subtle undertone of warning. Danger was near, and the game they were playing had grown far more complicated than she had imagined. Amara glanced around the launch hall, the crowd's applause fading into a blur, and realized something chilling. Without her shadow, she felt exposed, not just professionally, but personally. Somewhere in the layers of ambition, envy, and hidden agendas, an unseen force was moving, and she could feel that this was only the beginning. Love is never easy when ambition shadows every step. Amara paced the length of her apartment, her mind a tangle of fear, desire, and unresolved questions. The shadow's absence at the launch event had left her unnervingly exposed, yet it had also illuminated truths she could no longer ignore. Chike had noticed, he always noticed, but this time it wasn't just business or strategy, it was personal. The tension between them had reached a tipping point, demanding confrontation. When Chike arrived, he did so quietly, his presence commanding without a word. His eyes, usually veiled behind calm confidence, now revealed layers of emotion, concern, frustration, and something softer, almost vulnerable. "Amara," he began, his voice low and deliberate, "we need to talk about everything, the shadow, trust, us." The words hung between them like charged electricity. Amara hesitated. She wanted to flee, to protect herself from the vulnerability that threatened to overwhelm her, but she couldn't. Not now, not with so many unspoken truths pressing against her chest. She sat, drawing her knees close, her shadow lingering faintly at her feet as though it too sensed the gravity of the moment. Chike spoke of his past heartbreak, the loneliness that had shaped him, and the fear that vulnerability would be exploited. He shared glimpses of the boy who had learned early that trust could be fatal to ambition, the man who had built empires to shield himself from loss. His voice softened as he admitted that Amara's presence, her brilliance, and even her shadow had stirred emotions he had long buried. The confession was startling, not just for its intimacy, but because it revealed the human behind the myth, the man beneath the billionaire. Amara listened, absorbing the words while reflecting on her own journey. Independence had been her armor, a shield forged from a childhood with an estranged father, a protective mother, and siblings whose envy had forced her to rely on her own intellect and ambition. She had cultivated strength, resilience, and self-sufficiency. But in the quiet, with Chike revealing his vulnerabilities, she realized there was space within her for trust, for intimacy, and perhaps for love. Her shadow, ever present yet elusive, seemed to mirror her inner state. It danced subtly along the walls, stretching and contracting with a life of its own. It had become a metaphor for her fears, insecurities, and hidden desires, a silent barometer of emotional truth. Watching it, she understood that her connection to Chike wasn't merely circumstantial. It was intertwined with her very essence, reflecting the parts of herself she had never fully acknowledged. Romantic intimacy developed slowly, deliberately. Small touches, lingering eye contact, and moments of shared silence created a delicate tension that pulsed between them. A hand brushing lightly against hers while passing documents, a soft laugh in response to a teasing comment, the gentle weight of presence as they sat side by side, each moment deepened the emotional connection without overwhelming their carefully balanced professionalism. The pressure of their respective ambitions added urgency to their connection. Business deadlines, media scrutiny, and strategic negotiations meant that every private moment carried weight. Each choice they made was layered, balancing personal desire with professional responsibility. The stakes were immense, yet the intensity of their connection rendered both exhilarating and perilous. Cultural richness infused the encounter. On a quiet Sunday, Chike invited Amara to a church service, blending spiritual reflection with cultural heritage. Traditional Nigerian influences on decision-making, respect for elders, and ritualistic observances framed their discussion about trust, destiny, and partnership. Amara absorbed these lessons, understanding that navigating a billionaire's world required more than intellect. It required empathy, cultural awareness, and intuition. Her internal monologue wrestled with competing forces, the desire to trust, to embrace the connection with Chike, versus the need for self-preservation. Every instinct pulled in opposite directions. She questioned whether love could coexist with ambition at such extremes, whether vulnerability could survive in a world defined by calculated power and invisible influence. Through this struggle, she learned lessons in trust and partnership, discovering that destiny often required taking risks. She realized that love, ambition, and personal growth were not mutually exclusive. They could coexist, but only if approached with honesty, courage, and self-awareness. Then, just as the conversation reached its quiet peak, Chike leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. "Amara," he said, voice steady yet intense, "I want us to do this together, not just in business but in life. I want to propose a joint venture that will intertwine our worlds permanently, but it will require trust and courage." Amara felt the weight of the words settle over her. The proposal wasn't merely professional. It was a merging of destinies, a challenge to embrace both vulnerability and ambition simultaneously. Her pulse quickened, and her mind raced through the implications, the risks, the possibilities, the uncharted territory that lay ahead. She looked into Chike's eyes, searching for hidden motives, and whispered, almost to herself, "Are we ready for this?" The tension hung in the air, a fragile balance between desire, trust, and the unknown path that awaited them both. Two worlds colliding create sparks, and shadows reveal what hearts hide. Amara stepped into Chike's innovation lab, the air buzzing with anticipation. The room was a fusion of futuristic technology and minimalist design. Sleek glass panels, interactive holographic screens, and an array of AI prototypes humming quietly. Their joint tech project, a groundbreaking platform combining real-time analytics with immersive user experiences, had reached a critical stage, and every detail mattered. The stakes were monumental, both professionally and personally. As they worked side by side, their shadows moved independently across the polished floors, stretching and bending with an almost sentient awareness. Amara caught herself glancing at the subtle synchronicity of movement, realizing that the shadows mirrored their emotional states. When she hesitated, Chike's shadow lingered protectively close. When he laughed, her shadow seemed to reach toward him in playful alignment. It was as if the intangible was giving form to feelings neither dared to voice openly. Tension escalated with the arrival of rival companies and ambitious associates. Competitors hovered at trade shows and investor meetings, eyes sharp, motives hidden. Industry gossip suggested sabotage, and whispers of strategic maneuvering reached even the most casual conversations. Each meeting demanded both precision and vigilance. Amara quickly learned to navigate this world, balancing intellect, intuition, and the emotional currents swirling between her and Chike. Yet amidst the professional maelstrom, the personal connection between them intensified. That evening, after a long day of presentations and pitches, they found themselves alone on a rooftop terrace overlooking the shimmering Lagos skyline. The city lights reflected in Chike's eyes, and in that quiet moment, the world outside ceased to exist. Their conversation drifted from business to dreams, fears, and the vulnerabilities each had long concealed. Words became unnecessary when glances spoke volumes. Their first kiss came almost imperceptibly, gentle yet charged, a collision of restraint and desire. It was a kiss that acknowledged months of unspoken tension, a bridge between ambition and vulnerability, and an acknowledgement that the shadows, ever present, were now united. Amara felt her heartbeat echo in her ears, torn between fear of exposure and surrender to desire. The skyline stretched endlessly behind them, a visual echo of the infinite possibilities and risks their union represented. Cultural immersion continued to flavor their world. Rooftop dinners showcased Lagos's culinary sophistication, blending traditional flavors with contemporary presentation. Yacht parties along the harbor offered intimate glimpses of luxury and leisure, while the rhythmic pulse of Afrobeat music reminded them of home even in moments of global ambition. Every experience was both grounding and aspirational, a reminder of the delicate balance between personal roots and professional reach. Foreshadowing of the shadow's deeper meaning intensified. It no longer simply followed or observed. It intertwined, symbolizing their merged destinies. Their shadows danced together on terraces, hallways, and glass floors, a tangible representation of connection, trust, and shared ambition. For Amara, It became impossible to separate personal desire from professional vision. The two were now irrevocably linked. Emotional dialogue explored vulnerability and ambition in equal measure. "I've never trusted anyone this way," Chike admitted one evening as they reviewed strategy projections, shadows stretching in tandem across the floor. "And yet, I can't imagine moving forward without you." Amara's response was measured yet tender. "Trust is dangerous, but some risks are worth taking." Their words carried the weight of experience, love, and ambition, blending intimacy with high-stakes decision-making. Friends and allies offered counsel, advice, and sometimes veiled warnings. Tolu monitored developments closely, offering strategic guidance with hints of caution. Associates and investors added subtle complexity, their loyalties tested as corporate ambitions and personal dynamics collided. Amara realized that every interaction carried layers of consequence, and navigating them required both emotional intelligence and strategic acuity. The climax of trust and collaboration arrived during a high-profile investor pitch. Amara and Chike presented seamlessly, their synergy evident not only in strategy but in subtle gestures, the way they anticipated each other's points, the confidence exuded in tandem, and the unspoken communication that only months of collaboration and personal connection could forge. Investors were captivated, rival companies wary, and even their shadows seemed to pulse with anticipation, dancing in perfect intertwined alignment. As the applause faded and accolades filled the room, a sudden, sharp ripple of tension entered the atmosphere. A mysterious investor, previously absent from their negotiations, emerged with intentions that threatened not only the future of their joint venture, but also the delicate personal bond they had nurtured. Amara's breath caught, and she realized that even as shadows merged, danger was never far behind. Love demands courage, and courage demands sacrifice. The Lagos skyline shimmered under the weight of expectation as Amara sat at her office desk, the glow of her laptop illuminating her determined yet weary face. Business pressures had reached a fever pitch, investors demanded results, launch deadlines loomed like storm clouds, and every decision was scrutinized under the unforgiving lens of public attention. Even minor missteps could have monumental consequences for her startup and for her growing partnership with Chike. The emotional fallout mirrored the intensity of the professional strain. Arguments flared over minor disagreements, misunderstandings compounded quickly, leaving emotional distance in their wake. Chike, usually composed and commanding, grew impatient with delays, while Amara struggled to reconcile her independence with the growing need for collaboration. Their shadows, once intertwined, now appeared fragmented, stretching in discordant directions across polished floors, a mirror of the internal conflict consuming both of them. Each fragmented shadow seemed to whisper caution, highlighting insecurities Amara had long kept buried, fear of inadequacy, the lingering scars of her childhood, and the weight of responsibility that came with ambition. It was a subtle reminder that even love could fracture under pressure if not nurtured carefully, and that success without trust and emotional balance could leave her hollow. Amara and Chike navigated the delicate tension between ambition and love with a combination of strategy, restraint, and emotional courage. They exchanged subtle romantic gestures amid chaos. Handwritten notes slipped into briefcases, quiet conversations over late-night coffees, and moments of intimacy carefully woven between business meetings. Each act of connection reminded them of what they stood to lose and yet of what could be gained if they embraced vulnerability alongside ambition. Cultural touchpoints deepened the emotional landscape. Lagos's festivals and rituals, the vibrant nightlife, and the city's rhythm became a backdrop for their decisions. During a festival of lights, Amara watched Chike with the glow of lanterns reflecting in his eyes, realizing that tradition and modernity could coexist just as love and ambition could, if carefully balanced. The music, the scents, the communal energy, all intensified the stakes, reminding her that personal choices were inseparable from the cultural and social context surrounding them. Amara's inner growth accelerated under these pressures. She began to balance her independence with the demands of partnership, understanding that collaboration did not require surrender and that love did not demand compromise of values. The lessons were hard-earned, Trust must be earned and maintained, courage requires sacrifice, and personal growth often arrives in moments of discomfort. She discovered resilience within herself she had not fully recognized, and the capacity to navigate both love and ambition simultaneously. Yet, the world around them remained treacherous. Secondary characters' motives began to surface. Loyal allies revealed envy and hidden agendas, while rivals tested boundaries in ways that threatened both business and personal trust. Amara learned to read subtle cues, a pause in conversation, a veiled compliment, a strategic question. The line between friend and foe blurred, heightening tension and forcing her to rely on instincts honed over years of navigating both familial and professional complexities. The emotional crescendo arrived during a high-stakes investor presentation. Every decision, every answer carried the weight of their combined reputations. Fear surged, fear of failure, fear of losing credibility, and most of all, fear of losing each other amidst the chaos. Their shadows, momentarily reuniting but still tinged with cracks, mirrored the precarious balance of their relationship. Each glance, each gesture became charged with layers of meaning, blending ambition, desire, and mutual dependence. And then, just as Amara allowed herself a brief exhale, a new threat emerged. A discreet message slipped into her inbox anonymously, revealed information she had kept private, a family secret that could destabilize not only her personal life, but also her professional credibility. Her pulse raced. Questions collided with fear and curiosity. Who knew? How had it been discovered? And what would happen if the secret became public? As she stared at the message, her mind spinning with possibilities and dread, she felt a chill. Somewhere in the shadows of Lagos, someone was watching, waiting, and scheming. And Amara realized that the choices she made next could either fortify her future or shatter everything she had fought to build, professionally, emotionally, and personally. Only when shadows align do hearts see clearly. Amara sat at her desk, the anonymous message still vivid in her mind, a storm of fear and determination swirling within her. She could no longer ignore the threat. She had to understand who was behind it and why. Methodically, she traced digital footprints, pieced together subtle clues, and discovered unsettling truths. The family secret, long buried, delicate, and potentially explosive, was no longer safe. Yet the investigation revealed more than just vulnerability. It illuminated hidden patterns in the corporate world, alliances she had not anticipated, and motives of those she had trusted. Her shadow, once fragmented and restless, began to return to her, subtly at first, then fully aligning with her movements. The reunion was almost tactile, a reassurance that the chaos surrounding her could be met with inner balance. The shadow's return was symbolic. She had regained control not only of her professional life but also of her emotional equilibrium. She felt a newfound clarity, a quiet strength born from confronting both fear and uncertainty. Chike entered quietly, his presence as commanding as ever, yet softened by genuine vulnerability. He spoke of the risks he had taken to protect her, of the trust he placed in their partnership, and of the emotions he had long concealed beneath layers of control and charisma. "Amara," he said, voice low and steady, "I can't promise the world is safe, but I can promise I am committed, to you, to us, and to the path we've chosen together." Her chest tightened. It was not just words, but a declaration, a merging of personal and professional stakes, trust, and love. The tension between career ambitions and personal bonds, once a source of constant friction, began to resolve. Amara realized that love and ambition were not mutually exclusive. They could coexist when rooted in trust, clarity, and shared vision. Each decision she had faced, the leaks, the rivalries, the public scrutiny, had prepared her for this moment, a delicate balance of intellect, emotion, and courage. Cultural richness threaded through their journey as the couple engaged in ceremonies that blended traditional Nigerian values with modern sophistication. Family gatherings, intimate Lagos rituals, and professional celebrations alike honored heritage while embracing contemporary life. Amara witnessed how Chike navigated these dualities with elegance, and she began to understand the subtle ways culture informed strategy, relationships, and personal identity. It was a fusion of worlds, much like the merging of their shadows. An unexpected twist threatened to destabilize the newfound equilibrium. A rival, someone whose jealousy had simmered silently throughout their journey, revealed a corporate secret during a high-profile meeting, testing the strength of Amara and Chike's alliance. Tension filled the room as every attendee paused, eyes flicking between the duo, anticipating conflict. Amara felt a pang of anxiety, but the shadow at her side now pulsed steadily, a reminder of regained control and resilience. Their response was deliberate, coordinated, and calm. Dialogue flowed, laced with emotional honesty and strategic clarity. "We can't control everything," Amara said softly, meeting Chike's eyes, "but we can choose how we respond." His nod was subtle but meaningful, a silent affirmation that their partnership, built on trust, shared ambition, and vulnerability, could withstand even calculated attacks. Forgiveness, reconciliation, and understanding threaded through every word, every gesture, reaffirming their bond. Friends and family arcs also reached resolution. Tolu offered quiet approval, satisfied that Amara's instincts had guided her wisely. Family members, once distant or distrustful, recognized her resilience and growth. Even rival colleagues acknowledged the integrity and synergy of Amara and Chike, begrudgingly or genuinely, validating the hard-won balance between professional ambition and personal truth. Romantic payoff emerged in both private and public spaces. A quiet rooftop dinner, the skyline casting soft reflections over the water, became a sanctuary where whispered confessions, gentle touches, and shared laughter solidified their connection. Later, in front of colleagues and investors, subtle gestures, a reassuring hand on a shoulder, a synchronized nod, a confident smile exchanged, signaled that their personal bond now complemented their professional alignment. Love and partnership had merged seamlessly. Yet the story retained a whisper of mystery. In the quiet moments that followed, a faint, unfamiliar shadow appeared at the periphery of Amara's vision, fluid, deliberate, and enigmatic. It did not mirror her movements entirely, nor did it behave like her own shadow or Chike's. Its presence suggested that, even as resolution had been reached, the world remained layered with intrigue, possibilities, and unseen challenges. Amara's gaze lingered on the new shadow, her pulse quickening with a mix of curiosity and unease. She realized that while hearts may reconcile and paths align, destiny often introduces surprises beyond comprehension, and some shadows are yet to reveal their secrets. Shadows may vanish, but love and destiny leave an indelible mark. Amara and Chike stood on the terrace of their high-rise Lagos penthouse, the city's lights reflecting like scattered diamonds across the water. The skyline shimmered, and the wind carried the scent of salt from the nearby Atlantic. It was more than a moment. It was the culmination of every choice, every risk, every vulnerability they had dared to reveal. Their personal and professional worlds had merged, seamlessly entwined by ambition, love, and trust. The shadows that had once moved independently, fragmented and enigmatic, now flowed in perfect harmony with their movements. Amara watched her own shadow stretch beside Chike's, synchronized and whole. It was a silent affirmation that the turbulence of the past, the betrayals, rivalries, and uncertainties, had given way to clarity and empowerment. The shadows no longer symbolized fear or separation. They embodied strength, connection, and destiny fulfilled. Romantic culmination arrived gently, yet with the intensity that only months of tension and longing could produce. On a private island getaway, far from the bustle of Lagos, they celebrated in an intimate setting. A candlelit dinner by the shore, the gentle sound of waves punctuating shared laughter and tender touches that spoke louder than words. The moment was quiet, yet electric, an affirmation of love that had weathered storms, betrayals, and the complexities of ambition. Business triumph accompanied personal fulfillment, their joint venture, blending cutting-edge tech with cultural immersion and philanthropic initiatives, had achieved remarkable success. Investors praised the innovation, communities benefited from philanthropic outreach, and their influence expanded beyond borders. The world watched as Amara and Chike became symbols of modern Nigerian ambition, leaders whose intelligence and vision had created tangible impact while remaining rooted in cultural authenticity. Emotional payoff unfolded fully. Trust, forgiveness, and love became the foundation of every decision. Amara reflected on the journey that had led her here, the trials that had tempered her independence, the shadows that had guided her, and the man who had taught her that vulnerability could coexist with ambition. Chike, too, embraced openness, finding solace in a partnership that encouraged both intimacy and independence. Together, they had grown not just as lovers and colleagues, but as individuals fully capable of navigating a world of high stakes and delicate hearts. Cultural immersion punctuated the celebrations. Their commitment ceremony blended modernity with tradition, Lagos wedding rituals infused with contemporary elegance, local music interwoven with international orchestration, and attire reflecting a balance between Nigerian heritage and global sophistication. Guests marveled at the seamless interplay of past and present, while Amara and Chike reveled in the authenticity of a celebration that honored both love and culture. Visual storytelling reinforced the grandeur and intimacy of their lives. Yachts moored along the pristine shores, private jets ready to whisk them away, luxurious homes equipped with cutting-edge technology. Each element conveyed the success they had achieved while remaining deeply personal. Scenes shifted from bustling cityscapes to serene, secluded retreats, juxtaposing professional dominance with emotional sanctuary. Every frame mirrored the synthesis of ambition and love, risk, and reward. Secondary characters' arcs reached satisfying closure. Loyal friends and mentors found their roles solidified. Rival associates faced consequences tempered by integrity, and family members expressed pride and reconciliation. Each subplot wove seamlessly into the main narrative, reinforcing themes of trust, loyalty, and the enduring power of human connection. Amara took a moment to reflect, standing beside Chike as the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon. Shadows, she realized, were more than mere reflections. They had been her guides, her warnings, her confidants. They symbolized ambition, destiny, and personal strength. And now, synchronized and harmonious, they represented fulfillment, alignment, and the quiet, steadfast truth that love and purpose, when nurtured, could coexist beautifully. Yet even in this moment of serenity, the story hinted at continued intrigue. As they walked hand in hand into the golden sunrise, a faint shadow appeared at the periphery of Amara's vision. It moved with a deliberate grace, unfamiliar yet intriguing, a reminder that destiny never truly ends and that every ending carries the promise of a new beginning. Amara glanced down at the shadow and whispered, half in wonder, half in caution, "Who's that?" Chike's hand tightened around hers, a shared understanding passing between them. While their journey had reached a breathtaking climax, the future, full of shadows, ambition, and unseen adventures, was waiting. If you loved Amara and Chike's journey, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. Comment below, what would you do if your shadow had a mind of its own? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next thrilling drama. Your support helps us bring more captivating stories to life.